I'm going to go through 5 things that I have learned over the last 20 years that if you do these things, you are not going to get approved for your visa. So make sure you listen up carefully and make sure if you're interested, below is a free checklist and tips and pointers from my 20 years of experience getting people visas and get people through their interviews at consulates around the world. So make sure you download that freebie down below this video. In the link, you'll find a link, a free checklist and tips and pointers from me to you to help you get that visa approved. Now, let's get into the 5 things that you need to not do at your visa interview. Number 1, not having a return ticket back to where you came from. You cannot go to get a non-immigrant visa at a consulate without making sure that you have a return ticket, a round trip ticket back to the country where you came from. Now, not necessarily has to be back to the country you came from, but it better be back to a country outside the United States. You will not be issued a U.S. visa to the United States with a one-way ticket, and if by chance you do get the visa, unlikely you're going to get through Border Patrol if you only have a one-way ticket, because a one-way ticket implies that you are not leaving the United States. You're going to stay in the United States longer than you should or permanently. So make sure, number 1, you have a round trip ticket booked and with you not only at your interview, but make sure when you're entering the U.S. you have a round trip ticket. Number 2 thing not to do at your U.S. visa interview. Don't show ties back to your home country. You must show you have ties back to your home country, the country you're leaving from to go temporarily to the U.S. You must show them and prove to them that you have a reason to return back home, either family, bank accounts, very good job, property, businesses, something that ties you back home. And the reason why you're only temporarily going to stay in the United States, if you don't have ties to your home country, they're going to make the assumption that you have no reason to come back and you have no reason to leave the U.S. Therefore, unlikely that they're going to approve your visa. So make sure you have ties and you bring proof of that to your interview. 3 thing not to do is talk about a U.S. citizen boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or very immediate relative. If you have a U.S. citizen boyfriend or girlfriend or fiance or spouse or immediate relative in the United States, do not talk about that at your interview. If you're asked, do not lie, but do not talk about that on purpose. I'm going to the United States to visit my U.S. citizen fiance. Not a good idea to do. You do not want them to have any reason to believe that you are going to remain in the United States permanently because you have access to a U.S. citizen person that could sponsor you for a green card when you arrive. Therefore, it is not a good idea at a visa interview to talk about your U.S. citizen spouse, partner, mother, brother, whatever it is. You don't want to talk about them unless you're asked. If you're asked, you do not lie at any interview. You tell them the truth, but there's no need to bring up that fact when you're in your interview. 4th thing not to do at a U.S. visa interview is tell them that you're going to be working in the United States, unless the visa you're actually applying for requires you to work. But if you are going into the U.S. as a student or a visitor or someone who should not be working and is not authorized to work in the United States, you do not go into your visa interview telling them that you're going to go work in the United States. Even if you're going to be working for your company abroad, even if you're going to just be volunteering, you are not to be working in the United States on a visa that does not authorize you to work. So do not talk about being in the United States working on any level unless there is a reason that you have to do it that's related to the actual visa. If not, and you're not allowed to work because it is not authorized visa to allow you to work, then do not talk about anything that you're going to work in the United States while you're there. The last one I'm going to talk about that you should not say or do at your visa interview is to not say the words, "I don't know." Uncertainty at a U.S. consulate visa interview will set off alarm bells for them. Because if you're not certain where you're going, where you're staying, what you're doing, what you're allowed to do, where you're going to work, what your job is going to be, where you're going to perform. All these things are critical to show that you understand the parameters of the visa that they're going to be issuing you and what you can and can't do. Also, it shows that you understand why you're getting the visa, and it shows that there's credibility behind the actual application that was filed on your behalf. If you are a recipient of an O visa application or extraordinary ability visa application, and you go in and you have no idea where you're performing, what you're doing, and you say that you're a guitarist and you were applied for as a backup singer, that is not going to work. That uncertainty is going to cause you problems at a US visa interview. So make sure you do some homework before you walk into that interview and know the parameters of the type of visa that you're applying for, and make sure that you know where you're staying and what you're doing and what you're allowed to do and how much money you need and what is your itinerary and what is the name of your employer and the address of your employer and where you're going to be staying. All those things you need to know and be very certain of when you walk into that US visa interview. The words "I don't know" is not a good one to put out there at a US consulate interview. All right, everybody, I hope this was helpful. Those are my 5 things. I think the top 5 things that you should not do at a US visa interview in order to make sure that you get approved. Now, there's lots of other things that you shouldn't be doing or you should be doing, but those are my top 5. Those are basics that you have to be aware of when you walk into that visa interview. Make sure you don't do any of those things. You get prepared, you do your homework, you talk to the attorney that helped you, whenever, but make sure you don't just go in there and just wing it. You want to be prepared and know what you're going in for.